One of the schools I went to made a lot of dumb decisions. When government schools here in Australia are given taxpayer funding, there's a list of what they can spend their money on and what they can't spend their money on. I'm guessing that the list of what public schools can invest their money into might be a little vague. They once dropped roughly $5,000 on a small pond, which did nothing but attract eastern brown snakes, the second deadliest snake on the planet. So they probably dropped another $1,000 to build a fence around the pond that they originally paid for. There was that one ridiculously expensive iPad program where they gave iPads to all the primary school kids and then took them away because all the primary school kids did was take them home and download porn on it. And instead of putting any kind of parental controls on them, they just took away all the iPads. So unfortunately, little Tyler can't exactly catch up on the latest Coco Melon, like all his friends who went to other schools can. And they just casually dropped another $10,000 on like 2 statues made by a French sculptor, who I'm guessing his only claim to fame is that he was French, because his sculptures were just rocks with spikes sticking out of them. One of the statues was a rock carved out to form this sort of splattered silhouette, and he put a couple dots in the centre. $10,000 on a statue that looked like bird shit. Every Christmas it was coated in tinsel, just to hide it, just so that ugly $10,000 abomination wouldn't, damage the Christmas spirit. But by far the dumbest thing one of the schools I went to ever did was get a couple trees, plant them, without researching anything into what the actual trees were. I'm guessing they must have seen some trees for cheap and were like, oh hey, these trees look quite pretty, and they're selling for really cheap, we'll take them. At least I hope the trees were cheap. That way I can kind of forgive them. Because the trees they ordered and planted right outside of the school's opening was the Callery Pear Tree. These trees look pretty, don't they? Okay, now take one more look at the title of this video, and you'll see the problem with this tree. Now, I was 16 around the time the trees were planted, and I was popping nuts every day, like any healthy 16-year-old would. This was also around the time I got my first shitty laptop, so I wouldn't have to share the family computer. I'd become quite adjusted to what jizz smelled like, and those trees smelled exactly like jizz. When I first started noticing the smell outside the front of the school, I think I first must have guessed that maybe a couple teenagers might have gotten a little bit too experimental in their experimental phases. And of course, since I was 16, there was usually 1 or 2 girls getting pregnant. Most because condoms here are so fucking expensive. But then I realised that everyone who went to that school hated each other. Everybody had to get their boyfriends and girlfriends outside of the school. This was that one weird school where everyone was just super pissy towards each other. Okay, but enough complaining about how I had to get an actual fucking job just to get a girlfriend and some extra cash to buy condoms, because again, condom prices, fucking Australia, right? My next thought about the origin of the mysterious smell were the trees that were recently planted. So I went home, entered tree that smells like jizz into Pornhub first because I'm a fucking idiot, but then I found the right search engine with Google, and this little white tree came up. The same little trees with pretty white flowers that were planted at the entrance. So what exactly is the point of planting jizz trees? Trees like the Callery Pear Tree, even though they may smell off-putting to us, their smell actually attracts other animals. Just like how humans may find someone's body odour appealing and another's revolting for the reason of attracting mates that are genetically compatible with you to produce the healthiest offspring, these trees that smell to us humans like vomit, rotting fish, and jizz apparently smell wonderful to other animals like bees or or birds or any kind of insects that can help pick up the seeds that these trees produce and spread them elsewhere. Apparently, according to science, dinosaurs also love the smell of vomit, rotting fish, and jizz. The Callery Pear Tree, in this instance, secretes ammonia from its flowers to attract birds and bees. And the compound of ammonia is found in, you guessed it, it's also found in jizz. The other thing about the Callery Pear Tree is that because it can only produce through cross-pollination, and also because it's so easy for it to cross-pollinate, it's able to survive in urban areas where many trees wouldn't survive due to either like a lack of sunlight, pollution, normal city stuff. Now, because the Callery Pear Tree and other trees that smell awful but apparently smell delicious to birds and insects are able to survive in urban areas, many cities have thought it'd be a great idea to plant them to make the streets look a little bit prettier. But the thing is, those cities and my school forgot to take into account what these trees smell like. Let's take the ginkgo tree, for example. The tree was brought over from China to other parts of the world because the trees can easily survive even the most polluted of America's environments. And since those cities went into all the effort of planting the trees and waiting a whole century just to watch them grow, they're finally here. They're making the beautiful streets of America smell like vomit. Learning nothing from our gun-toting brethren here in Australia, we decided to order Callery Pear Trees by the batch and just plant them. And it's not just my school that has the problem. Australian cities love planting this cum tree. Sure, these trees look pretty and they attract all kinds of wildlife. But now everyone's getting more cum rubbed in their faces over the bullshit they have to go through for their morning routine before work. First you have to get up, make coffee, take a shower, dress yourself, and when you finally left the front door and are ready to take a good, strong smell of the fresh morning air, you forgot that your street smells like jizz because your council planted the wrong bloody trees. Now, thanks to the innocent and stupid mistake of generations past, every major city in the world now smells like cum. And since ripping up 150-year-old trees is both 1, expensive, 2, time-consuming, and 3, begs the question of what other trees to put in the streets if the only ones that can survive are trees that smell like vomit and cum. Streets are forced anyway to dump a huge amount of money into spraying pesticide on those trees just so they don't, stink up the streets every autumn. So while these trees may look pretty and they can survive in pretty much any urban environment, it's probably best not to plant them because you have to spend a huge amount of money anyway to spray pesticide all over it so your streets won't smell of vomit, cum, or even in one case, rancid peanut butter. I'll reiterate my point once again, stop planting jizz trees. Also, side note, even though I live way too far away from my old school, I looked up their website, and on the front page, I saw photos of all the school's highest achievers, standing next to the principal and the head of so-and-so, and in the background, the jizz trees are there. The unique smell of those students, unfortunately, not getting laid.